Cypress. Bring the hammer down. Okay, let's come to order here. Southern Shores Planning Board meeting, April 17th, 2023. If you all will stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's play ball.
Yeah. Right. First order of business would be to approve tonight's agenda. Can I get a motion on that?
I'll motion to approve the tonight's agenda for April 17th, 2023.
Okay. Can I get a second? Ed, seconds. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, none. Has everybody had a chance to look at the meetings and do we have any corrections? I think what Sheila's trying to do, shame us into working all weekend reading
I know. Yeah.
read minutes, but anyway, I understand why. But do we have any more corrections?
She put my corrections in.
Mine are in there too.
Yes, we received comments from you as well as Tony, and both of those have been incorporated. Both of y'all's have been incorporated.
Yeah, I mean, everything else looked fine to me.
Yeah, I made
Yeah.
a few just minor changes as well, but
Okay. Well, I will get a motion to approve the minutes of January 24, 2023 special meeting. I'll make that motion. Could I get a second?
I'll second it.
Tony seconds. Any discussion there? Nope. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. No public comment. Okay. On old business, I really didn't talk to Wes about this, but I'm assuming that at some point we'll get a rough ZTA that we can start working off of.
that's correct. Yes, sir.
So I wouldn't have any, I mean, I would say if we want to talk about it a little bit, it would probably be a lot better to talk about it when we've got staff's ZTA coming. Does anybody have any suggestions to Wes to add on to what we've been talking about?
I'm good.
I'm really not prepared to speak to it, to tell you the truth, but, yeah, let's just wait till we hear from staff on that one.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it'll certainly won't be a conclusive ZTA, but we'll,
It'll be something to start with.
yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be a good starting point.
Yes, sir. That's the intent. is
Okay.
for- Hopefully get that in front of y'all in May. And I'll tell you later, May will be a busy agenda, but we might be able to get it on there.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, item B under old business is the discussion of additional requirements for accessory structures that contain living space. I had Wes send us the 2 House bills, and as far as I can tell, nothing has changed on the draft since, when was the date on this? It was March 20th and March 27th,
Right.
these 2 House bills. But in essence, it looks to me like it's a pretty heavy-handed approach from the state to tell, municipalities like Southern Shores how they can control their density. And I don't think much of it. And I'm hoping, I haven't talked to the mayor yet, but I have copied her on a couple of emails that I've sent. But I'm hopeful, and it may be something that we need to do tonight that would spur things along with council and the mayor to put forth a resolution of opposition on these 2 House bills. I know they did it, 2 years ago, Wes? They did a resolution along these same lines where the state was trying to control density situations. So I certainly would hope, and I don't think it would be out of line for the planning board to have town council respond to these 2 bills, because they very much are telling us how we can control density. They may or may not. I think they have moved through the House already. It looks to me like that they've voted on these drafts, and they're going through the House now. So the Senate would have to approve it. I mean, it's still kind of a work in progress, but I mean, if you look at section, where is it? Where it tells you how close you can be on setback. Yeah, on the back page of HB 409, item E says a local government may impose a setback minimum for accessory dwelling units of 5 feet, or the setback minimum imposed generally upon lots in the same zoning classification, whichever is less. That's absurd.
Yeah.
That you could put an accessory dwelling unit, because 5 feet would definitely be less in Southern Shores when we have a 15 and 25 foot setback. That's absurd that the state could tell us that we have to do that. The only, looking at both of these, and Wes, you may need to jump in to interpret some of it, but it looks to me like there is some area where we can require attachment of some regard. Did you see anything in either of these bills, Wes, that would preclude us from, because we were talking about it last meeting, about rather than having it out at the street like the one at Beech Tree, or one that looks like it's on a separate lot on Ocean Boulevard, if there was some attachment there, they wouldn't look like that. So I didn't see anything in there that said that you couldn't regulate attaching it or create some kind of language. I don't know.
I'm not sure if you could, but I mean, the definition means an attached or detached residential structure. So it could be one or the other. I don't know if that means that you have to allow one or the other.
Well, the definition of a house is a detached, single-family dwelling. Detached means what in that regard?
The legislature, I don't know.
No, I'm talking about the way it's been all along. In our ordinances, it says, detached, what's allowed in RS1 is,
Detached single-family dwelling.
detached, single-family dwellings. Explain what that precisely means, the way it's written right now.
A freestanding structure.
Yeah. So, but it's freestanding with nothing else attached to it.
A single-family dwelling, but then again, you can attach a garage, or you can
Right.
attach
Exactly.
But additional living space,
No, I have no problem with attaching something like the tiny house over on Beach Street. I don't know if that's something we can explore as an option, and it be legal if this thing passed word for word.
If we use the word attached, that would defeat the 5-foot setback. Because if it's attached to where it's a 15-foot setback, if it's attached to that and you go 5 feet, you're limiting
Yeah.
the property to 10 feet, which is then pretty much, in other words, 15 feet, then you got 15 feet and they're allowed up to 5 feet. So if you put attached, if they attach it to that building, you can only go in 10 feet more according to the law. And I think you would really limit a lot of the accessory buildings and it's a backhanded way of defeating the 5-foot deal. You see what I'm saying? Do you follow the math?
I think it's ludicrous that we would be forced by the state to allow an accessory structure at 5 feet.
So do I.
Because they're saying either what you have in place now, which we have 15 on side, 25 front and rear, then you could come to within 5 feet of the property line with an accessory dwelling unit, whether it was at the street or attached to the house. Either 5 feet or 15 feet, which is what we have on the books. Whichever's less. Obviously, 5 feet's going to be less.
Yeah.
I don't, that just seems absurd. But yet it's in there.
It's 3 feet in the city of Durham.
It's what?
It's 3 feet in the city of Durham
Yeah,
for accessory dwelling.
Crazy.
yeah.
Well, one of the things in looking at this legally, okay, and that's how I was reading some of this stuff, which I'm amazed at what they wrote, but they do have in section D, nothing in this section shall affect the validity or enforceability of private covenants or other contractual agreements among property owners relating to dwelling type restrictions. Now, I know for a fact that the Civic Association, because I dealt with accessory structures with the Civic Association, I know for a fact that there's some blocks in Southern Shores that does not allow accessory structures unless they're directly attached to the house. Ernie Dash, who's currently on there, I went through something with him where we had to attach it. Now, I talked to the Civic Association past president. I happened to run into him, and I asked him who is in charge of the ARB now, because that would fall right under the auspices of the ARB.
Well,
And he said he doesn't know, he doesn't think anybody is doing that any longer. But if we worked with the ARB or we worked with the Civic Association and kind of found out which blocks, I used to know them, I don't know them anymore, I'll be honest, which blocks does not allow accessory structures unless they're attached. That's some knowledge that I think would be very good for the town to have. And if the Civic Association ever enforced it, we could, in other words, we have power here, according to their law, if we work through, I don't know about Chickahook, okay? I only know about the SSCA. If we work through that, I know there are many blocks that does not allow accessory structures unless they're attached.
Well,
And they can enforce it according to their law.
but the chance of relying on the Civic Association to enforce something, I mean, that went out the door around here a long time ago where, you know, if you didn't get sign off from the Civic Association, you went in there and you didn't get your building permit until you had, you know, Mickey Hayes' blessing or whoever it was at the time. And that went away a long time ago. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying. And John, you had a comment in the last meeting about look at the covenants. We have 58 sets of covenants in Southern Shores, which is,
But you do have that
Extremely
one set
hard.
of covenants for the Southern Shores subdivision. Yeah. Now, I don't know whether that can be amended with 50% or 2/3.
yeah,
And I know it's a pain in the ass.
yeah.
But if you ever do something with the covenants, it's important that the covenant be in place before the law is enacted.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
the courts have held that they're not going to allow you to take away a basic property right after the fact.
Yeah. Well, I don't see a whole lot of, outside of telling us that we would have to allow an accessory dwelling unit up to, you know, to come up 5 feet on your property line. The rest of this basically would be what we would allow anyway in an accessory dwelling unit if we can limit the distance between the unit and the main house. I mean, I think that's probably what we want to try to figure out is legally, if this passes right now, we're just talking about it. There's no need needing wasting breath on, you know, trying to say, well, this is what we need to do. You know, let's get a ZTA going. You know, until this clears, you know, the General Assembly, and it may not. The last one didn't fly because a lot of municipalities joined hands and sent resolutions to the state, and they withdrew it. So,
Well, to be proactive with this, like we were saying, once this is passed, we have to go with it. A proactive approach would have a ZTA ahead of time saying how close the accessory building has to be to the residence. Then it wouldn't look like, in other words, it wouldn't be a reaction we're saying, hey, that's already in place before anything was passed. So proactively, if you're, you know, if you do something ahead of time, you have a better chance of it flying on appeals or anything because it's already in place. And we're not talking about not banning accessory structures. We're just saying for the town of Southern Shores, we believe that an accessory structure has to be within 10, 15, 20 feet, I don't know, pick a number of the main building.
or adjoining to it.
Or, yeah, there's a couple different things, but if that's in place ahead of time, and according to this takes effect October, if it passes, it might not pass. But if it's in place already, we could say, hey, that's been, we had that already,
Well, but
you know?
if we've got it and it passes,
You gotta
it's
take
null
it-
and void.
You gotta take it out.
You got to take it
yeah.
out.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's like,
Well,
you know, 160D stuff that we we liked it in there, but we had to take it out. Well, it would be the same thing if we liked putting something in there and this thing went through word for word, then what we put in, we'd have to take out.
Okay, I see, maybe I'm ignorant on this, okay, and forgive me for my ignorance, and don't put that in, Sheila.
Does that require a motion?
Yeah, strike that. But there's nothing in here that says anything about distance from the main residence. So I don't know why, if we already have something in place saying distance or attached, I don't see how that violates this law, because we're not changing anything. They don't have anything in here. Their loophole, the loophole, if you want to play loopholes with law, the loophole is that they don't have that in there.
Yeah.
Well, they do state it though, section 2 right here, local government
On
shall
which
adopt.
one? Which bill?
That session 2023, the same page that you're reading
Yeah.
from, where you go down, it says section 2, local government shall adopt land use ordinances and regulations or amend their comprehensive plans to implement the provisions in this act no later than October 1. So they're saying, even if you have it in place, you're still going to have to amend it to go with what they decide.
Yeah, but they don't have anything in there about
Well,
distance.
they have here with this 5 feet thing, as we're talking about. But
That's from the setback, not from the residence.
Right.
Yeah.
That, so, if you want to play legal loopholes, that's the legal loophole.
Well, and going back to what you were saying with the covenants, and John as well, is at the top of that, on page 2, it says, nothing in this section shall affect the validity or enforceability of private covenants or other contractual agreements. But I think that's would be a pretty deep rabbit hole to jump into to try to circumvent what we want to do and rely on the covenants to help us out. I just legally, I'd much rather do it within our town government. And I would suggest that maybe we have Wes and our attorney. I mean, I think we're all in agreement that we feel the need for accessory dwelling units, and B, we don't want them completely separate and detached from the house so much that it looks like a whole different scheme is on one lot. So
So what about these units on top of a garage, 2-car garages down the driveway from the main house? No, is what we're saying.
I think
Because it's already in place.
I think that there would if there were situations where they were being used as an accessory dwelling unit right now, that would be legal, wouldn't it, Wes?
Yeah.
That
Yeah. I mean,
you could have, I had a picture in our last talk about this. There was a detached garage 2 doors down from the tiny house, Tom Hartman's house. It's not lived in, it's his shop, but it could be lived in, and it would be perfectly legal. Well, I would certainly say that there would have to be some grandfathering of situations where this was already occurring, if we were able to, have some kind of ordinance that would say they've got to be either this close or attached to the main house.
Yeah, I've been looking for guidance or input on, interpreting this building's language, but I haven't really seen anything new, and I would share it with you if I did. But reading the definition again, I'm thinking since it says means an attached or detached, that you can't require it to be attached when it says it could be detached by saying or detached.
But you could put a limit on how far. I don't see anything in there that says, even if they said, oh, you can't make these people attach it to the house. Okay, then it can't be 75 feet away from the house. How about that?
So you're
Well, the
saying it could be
difference-
detached, but so you're saying it would still be detached, but you're talking about putting in a requirement that says it can't be more than 20 feet away.
Or a distance of something that we would agree on.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And what we're fighting against is the aesthetics of the way it looks.
I think so.
Because in Martin's Point, some of those garages are detached more than 50 feet from the main home.
Mhm.
And they have access for probably some sleeping upstairs if they wanted to be. And it looks fine because it's treed and it's all in unison. However, now that we got one going on the ocean side, and you start thinking, okay, you're gonna line up all of these, in a straight line, and you got, so it completely changes the flavor of, what we have. And what we're trying to do is preserve that. So I go back to designating an historic district, much like what Nags Head is doing to circumvent the problems they're having there. Why can't we use a historic presence? And because they are in that, and again, I'm just voicing some ideas, that's all. Because then it eliminates, the problems we're gonna have in Martin's Point versus what we got out there. I mean, we know this isn't what we want the beach to look like. Well, why is it so special? Because it's on the ocean. This is Southern Shores. This is, our flat top areas. It is historic to us. It is who we are. This is what we present to everybody who comes down here. So how can we put our arms around that as a designation and then just say, okay, you can do it in other areas, but you can't do it there. I don't know.
I quite frankly don't want it in my neighborhood. That tiny house that I've referred back to many times is one street over from me. And if you don't have a pool in Southern Shores on a 20,000 foot lot, you can put a tiny house on it. You can put one on yours. Y'all can put one on yours. I can put one on mine. And all of a sudden it becomes not only aesthetics, but a density issue.
What about use? I mean, is it all gonna be just classified as residential or?
I don't think we would have any say in, it would be an accessory dwelling unit, and it would have to be allowed by law according to this. But if we can kind of get in and finagle, something that looks like it would hold water as far as maybe, the distance and, if it was attached. I don't know. I hear what you're saying, but you would exclude, if you went with a historical district, you would certainly exclude, a lot of Southern Shores. It would just be the the split in the road back to Southern Shores really would be the historic district. About it from being on the commission.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot you can do. I mean, there are not many historic houses outside of that zone and up on Skyline.
Right. Skyline there and Ocean Boulevard.
Yeah.
It's Ocean Boulevard, wasn't
I think your minimum distance requirement from the main structure, that might have some legs. I
Mhm.
think that would work for a period of time
Yeah.
unless somebody decided to, challenge it. Everything that I see coming from the General Assembly on these issues has to do with municipalities.
Mhm.
They're regulating municipalities and what municipalities can do. And I think from a municipality standpoint, I think less restrictions is going to be consistently coming down the road that we're allowed to impose. That's just the nature of our legislature and the influences that are playing out in Raleigh. I think the highest merit, regardless of whether the civic association is active or whatever, is in covenants in a private HOA. HOAs are contracts with the landowners, and legislature's not touching those. They say, whatever you do in your HOA is your business. You can restrict anything in your HOA.
Yeah,
And we know that Southern Shores Civic Association is probably too big. There are too many houses. That's a huge undertaking for them to enter into the regulation business. And we know that. However, if that's what you really want to do, I think that's the best way to proceed if you want to control the way things look. We can designate a zone, a special oceanfront zoning district, and we can, impose some restrictions on that. But again, as a municipality, I think we're constantly going to lose that battle as the years go by. I think we can wring our hands with it, but I think that's a battle we're always going to lose. Maybe if the oceanfront property owners might want to form their own HOA. And if they do, that'd be great. They could set up their own, oceanfront district, oceanfront historic district, and decide whatever they want within there. If they can get the people to join and agree. But
Well,
anyway.
I mean,
that's just my 2 cents.
we're just so stretched out chronologically in Southern Shores from, 50s into the 60s, into the 70s, and we're, into the 80s and 90s, and then we're starting to tear down the 80s and 90s and 70 houses and build bigger and bigger, and everybody wants more. And I understand what you're saying, Robert, but I mean, this isn't like Bald Head Island or Figure 8 Island, where somebody owned one giant piece of property. Figure 8 Island, I've just been to recently. And man, the homeowners association there is strong. The mailboxes are in a line. It looks like somebody shot a transit on the mailboxes. You're not allowed garbage cans out. Your house numbers have to be on the mailbox, can't be on the house. Every landscape yard, I mean, it is unbelievable. It's beautiful. It is absolutely gorgeous. But the genie's out of the bottle for Southern Shores. This was split up into way too many pies, evidenced by 58 sets of covenants that half of them aren't worth the paper they're written on today. I mean,
I'm just speaking from a practical standpoint of the way, what municipalities, the authority that they are granted by the legislature is, over the last many years has been squeezed and squeezed and squeezed in favor of property rights.
Mhm.
And I don't see that turning around. And so, I just don't think the municipality, we have a way of, like I said, I think your distance minimum, that might have some legs. Because like you said, they don't say anything about it. We have to allow them attached or detached.
Yeah.
It looks like we're gonna have to allow them 5 feet from the property line. However, we may be able to say, but you have to be this distance from the main structure. We could probably get away with that. But most of the other things in there, as a municipality, our hands are tied. There's just very little, I don't know. I think there's little point in.
Well, at this point, to move things along, we're certainly not going to settle anything tonight, but to move things along, could we agree to maybe have Wes and staff look into the possibility of looking at the language here and seeing where we can try to juke and jive and stay within the language that's here right now. And it would be mainly the distance or the attachment, or I don't know, but if we can get Wes to do that, and then also if we can agree that we certainly think it would be prudent for town council to send a resolution to the state saying that this goes directly against our land use plan, which we're paying big money for right now, that, coincidentally is run by the state, CAMA, but it's in direct conflict with our land use plan. And so those two things, if we can agree on that and go on the record as saying that we would like for the town council to come up with a resolution, then I think we can kind of wrap this discussion up and move on to the next.
I have a question for you. The issue of the setback, was that the only issue that you had within here?
More or less. I mean, most of it seemed like it was a little heavy-handed. I mean, it definitely says that if you've got single-family residential, you can't have that anymore. You got to have, you can't have single-family residential. You got to have single-family residential with a tiny house on it. So all of a sudden it becomes not single-family residential, right?
Mhm.
So they're telling us that we have to do that. Where right now, we kind of skirt the issue, but they're telling us that we got to do that.
And also where the unit has to have its own utilities also. Goes against single, suddenly now there's a separate utility.
Yeah.
So is that now single family? The utility itself is separate, is an automatic separation.
Yeah, but they're telling you got to have it. The state, or this bill, of course, it hadn't gone through. I think the last one, Wes, was about 2 years ago where they wanted to make towns have duplexes and triplexes and quadplexes in single-family residential areas. And it got tossed, but it went fairly far. I've got that resolution that the town sent somewhere, and it was a good one. Tom Bennett signed it, but I think we need to implore the town council to get that resolution moving and send it to the state.
And
So-
I think you're right about the resolution. That's a very positive thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get all that excited about the details in here.
No,
Because first, I don't think it'll pass, but if it does pass, it's not going to be in this format.
no, it won't be.
There'll be other things, or they might even specify the size of the units, things like that. And I don't see an advantage to the town in trying to deal with it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Because they're going to say, this is the law, you change your stuff. So you could actually react to it instead of being proactive.
Yeah.
But I think the resolution is a very positive thing.
Well, is everybody in favor of that? I mean, can I?
Y'all can agree by consensus to
Yeah.
ask the town council to
Yeah.
approve a resolution.
Yeah. And then to button it up, town staff look at this and you know basically what our desires are is, I think everybody wants accessory dwelling units to occur, but with some restrictions that the town can place on them. Is all I'm saying.
Well, are you moving on accessory dwelling units after this to letting them have a kitchen and a bathroom and a bedroom?
I don't see, I mean, to me,
Before we were playing with hot plate.
bull crap. The interpretation that Wes had to make to me was ridiculous because
So just take that out as a that little veil.
well, and it says as much here that you have to, those accessory dwelling units have to be just
fully
like,
functional.
fully functional. So, the difference between it having a stove in a bedroom was ludicrous to me. I mean, let them have if you're going to have an accessory dwelling unit, you got to be able to, cook properly. And I mean, because it may be your mother-in-law living out there or something, who knows? I don't have any heartburn at all about
Well, I mean, that's,
it was, but yeah, I mean, Wes had to, on those two houses, and both houses have sleeping situations and they cook in there. And just because they're cooking on a microwave and something that plugs into a 110, whatever. I mean, let them have a stove in there, my Lord. Yeah, to me, that's.
I think we've we crossed that bridge with one of the recent updates.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
it said that he has to go by the plans.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they can have a kitchen and they can have a sitting room and another sitting room and another sitting room.
Yeah.
And furnish those with
Sure.
beds.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, we
No,
can't do anything about that.
but anyway, if we can, I mean, we're in agreement, with, you know, and I'll call, the mayor up, next day or so and tell her that what we talked about here. And then just if staff can work on some wiggle room.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I think the distance idea is not a bad one because if we have it in place, it's part of our code and anytime anybody comes in to build one,
Mhm.
they have to meet that code
Yeah.
of that distance. Now,
If it's
the
not,
eventual law may
Yeah.
come in and strike that, but in the meantime, everything will be built.
well, this law originated from the home builders. Both of these sponsors of these bills are heavily influenced by the home builders lobby.
Home builders and realtors.
I'm really surprised at that.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to, new business here and put all this stuff away. And Wes has a staff report. I'm going to get you to give us a rundown of the staff
I'll
report.
just do a summary. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not going
just
to
a
read
summary.
it word for word. But this application is ZTA-2303. Town staff was directed by council at the March 21st meeting to amend the town's lot width requirements to make them unambiguous. As you all will recall, there was a recombination plat denial that was appealed. The board upheld the decision by the zoning administrator. The applicant appealed that to Superior Court. And eventually, a consent order was entered between the applicant and the town, and that resulted in the zoning administrator's decision being reversed and the recombination plat approved. So this ZTA 2303 is an attempt at making it less ambiguous. Now, the town attorney has reviewed it and they believe it accomplishes that. And we are recommending approval of it. However, it might not be what everyone wants. Right now, the way it's worded, it basically is saying you have to have a rectangle lot 100 feet from the front all the way to the back. So that means that cul-de-sac lots or irregularly shaped pie lots or any lot that's not 100 feet from the front all the way to the back, it would be considered a non-conforming lot. And it would be subject to the non-conforming requirements if it's adjacent to another non-conforming lot that's under same ownership. It may or may not have to be recombined. But at this point right now, this right here would make it so it's not ambiguous that your lot has to be 100 feet wide. Now, whether or not y'all want to move forward or y'all are inclined to recommend that to the council, we can certainly discuss. But at least it would take care of that issue in the meantime. And possibly if you all wanted to see something different, we could revisit it and change it again to make it a little more flexible. So that's the gist of this application.
Okay. Thank you, Wes. Well, can I get you, and I probably should have given you a heads up before we get to the meeting, but I mean, I've read this thing over and over and over. Lot width, minimum horizontal distance between the side lot lines of a lot measured from the front lot line at right angles to the rear. Does that mean parallel to the rear lot line?
No, the front lot line is parallel to the rear lot line.
Say that again.
The front lot line is parallel. The side lines are parallel to each other. Then the front and the rear are parallel to each other unless it's a irregularly shaped lot.
So where does the right angle come into play?
the right angle where the front lot line meets the side lot line, or the rear lot line meets the side lot line. That's a right angle. That's the right angle.
That's where the right angle would come from.
Yes,
Even though the lot might be a rhombus or a
that's right.
trapezoid.
There,
or-
in some cases, you're not going to have that right angle.
Yeah. Well, I just will get you to pull up the cul-de-sac lot. Okay, everybody should have that picture in front of them. This is, the numbers might not be dead on right, but this is a local builder's house or lot over on the end of CH Trail. It's a cul-de-sac, not unlike lots of other cul-de-sacs in Southern Shores. And the first place you hit 100 feet is what you're seeing there. And it certainly doesn't make, I mean, there's no right angle involved there. I mean, I don't know how that lot width definition would apply.
I think your example right here is the reason the code was written in the way it was in the first place, to allow this to be a conforming lot.
I'm not gonna argue against that, but I think that if that lot right there, in the true sense of the word, of the ordinance as it's written today, you couldn't permit that lot as being a conforming lot, could you? Because you didn't have 100 feet at the front property line. Is that right?
Well, as
So technically speaking, in today's term, that would not be, today's ordinance, that would not be a conforming lot. But yet, there's a house sitting on that, and there's a bunch of houses sitting on cul-de-sac lots. How, I mean, I don't have a problem with that being a conforming lot, but it just, that 100 feet is not achieved until right there. And it's a long way, that the red dotted line is the setback lines. For that lot to technically be conforming, you would have to have 100 feet at that front setback arc. And you don't have it.
well, that's the interpretation, but as we know, it has been declared, it's not clear.
Well, no, it's not. And to me, I don't see how lot width, the way it's written here in this ETA, would make that any different. Does it?
I can't answer that.
Okay. Well,
We know that the interpretation that I used for the recombination plat was similar to what you're saying,
exactly.
but we are where we are.
I don't want to rehash old news, but what I would like to see is, and if you look at let's see, go down to the last page that has other possibilities for discussion. Bullet number 2 at the bottom says simplify lot width definition to be measured as the average or mean horizontal distance between the side property lines of a lot. And it's directly from the American Legal Publishing definition. And American Legal Publishing is like Muni Code. It is all over the country. And that was their definition. So if you go back to that example, that bullet in the middle of that lot is roughly the center of the lot. So at that point, you have 135 feet. So if we said average, then that lot is conforming because you're hitting 100 feet at the average or the mean distance of the lot.
Is it the average of the lengths on the sides?
Yes, from front to back, or average of the sides. I mean, I think we'd probably have to hone in a little bit more on, some really whacked out irregular, lots. But by and large, if we went with an average rather than a strict 100 feet at the front property line setback, then I think it relaxes the ordinance and it allows more use of, looking at a plat and saying, you're good, rather than, this is how I'm interpreting it. I mean, we want to take that away from Wes as far as I'm concerned.
There have been some concerns about flag lots.
Right.
And in this case, if you're saying it has to be 100 feet wide, pretty much at the middle, that would still allow flag lots. You could have 20 feet, or the frontage requirement is 30, so you could have 30 feet all the way to 135 in this case, and then it opens up.
Has to be the average. So that would mean that, again, you're talking about the whole lot.
Yeah.
So that the average would be the 100 feet. In other words, it couldn't be too distorted, so that it was shorter in the back and shorter in the front, with just the 100 in the middle.
Well, I think if,
Has to,
in this example, I just drew the lot roughly to scale. I mean,
Right.
that's pretty
that's
much
a good example.
to scale. And the red lines are the setback line. So it's 25 feet front and rear, 15 feet to the side. So whether you go down the sidelines or front to back on that one, if you went from the front setback to the back setback, you're still landing at the middle. That bullet is the middle of that lot, front to back.
Right. No, I was just referring to, let's just say the back side was the same as the front side. Then that lot would not have an average of 100 feet across.
I don't know. I'm following you there.
Okay. Let's just say that you flip this here and it goes that way.
Uh-huh.
And because, well, yeah, you got 100 there, so it still would. In other words, both sides have to be the average of 100 feet to accommodate. In other words, somebody, I'm sorry,
But this lot would, from this ZTA, this lot would be non-conforming.
That's correct.
Why do we want to do that? Let's make this lot conforming. I mean, there's a ton of lots like that in Southern Shores on cul-de-sacs, and then there are a lot of irregular lots. And if you look at the bullets again, the first bullet says treat the minimum lot width as an average to achieve the 100-foot requirement for a legally conforming lot, along with 20,000 square feet of lot size. So that would certainly put this example in the conforming category rather than the non-conforming, and make Wes have to interpret the fact that someone could develop this lot and it would be a conforming lot. But I also found in the subdivisions, let's see, where was that? In the definitions on the front of the page, on the front page from Wes today, building setback line, and this comes out of 3002 subdivisions, building setback line means the line within a property defining the required minimum distance between any building and the adjacent right-of-way or lot. So that would encompass the street or the sidelines. So instead of saying right now that if you go look at in the ZTA, the minimum lot width is 100 feet measured, and then the change is from the front line at right angles to the rear. I would prefer that the minimum lot width, or that the language for the building setback line be changed to 3002 definition, which would encompass all lot lines, not just the front line. I think that if we simplified the definition of minimum lot width and made it an average, then that cul-de-sac lot would be conforming, along with a lot of other lots that might be a little bit more narrow at the street and widen gradually to the back. And there are some situations that we have dealt with in the past that have been non-conforming. Wes, could you pull up the Hurd property on Sea Oaks? Yeah, both of them. I don't know if you can get the red line to click on both of them. Yeah, there you go. Can you zoom that lot a little? There you go. This lot is an exception in our ordinance for non-conforming lots. The reason being is there's no 100-foot there. It's 90. And it's also under same ownership as the one with the house on it. But that's an exception in our ordinance to let that lot exist.
Well, actually, that exemption would apply to any situation like this where you have a conforming lot with a single-family dwelling adjacent to a non-conforming
Right.
lot that is non-conforming with respect to lot width.
Mhm.
So if, for whatever, if this worked, and the current language was to be adopted, then that exception would probably apply in many other situations, not just the herds.
Mhm. But anyway, that, the lot to your right is a vacant lot that's under same ownership. And there was some concern that he would have to combine those two properties when we were working with non-conforming situations. So, I mean, I think there's about 5 exceptions in the ordinance that allows for use that otherwise might not have been allowed.
Or how are those exceptions determined?
People like Mr. Hurd came to several meetings here and, lobbied for help. And it certainly made sense that, that the lot is 20,000 square feet and 90 front and back. It's a non-conforming lot. And under same ownership, they should have been combined into one lot, which made no sense. Then,
Exceptions in the ordinance to specific property owners
yep,
leaves us quite open. And
Not according to-
That's where we chose not to go.
yeah, I know, but there were exceptions that we just couldn't work through that our attorney said were perfectly fine to accept. So, I mean,
Did he say anything about their ability to be held up in court? Because none of the attorneys that I've talked to, including the town attorney and the board attorney,
Yeah.
thought that there's a leg, none of them think there's a leg to stand on if you take it to court. We
I don't
chose
know.
not to.
We don't
not
know
to
yet.
challenge the town with that and bring it all down.
Yeah.
But I don't think exceptions are the answer.
It made sense because otherwise, the properties, the way the ordinance was written, would not allow use like Mr. White. He had a 50-foot lot next to his house on Ocean Boulevard. Wasn't that one of them, Wes?
I think so.
And otherwise, it would render that lot useless the way it was written. So rather than I mean,
So
it
is
was
this
it was a
buildable
carve
lot?
out.
Is this a buildable lot?
What?
This,
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it's a conforming lot, or it's an exception. This example is an exception in the zoning ordinance.
In the ordinance, there were 4 or 5 properties, individual property owners that were exempted from that restriction on recombination.
Not property owners, the property. There was
Right.
never a mention of owners' names.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
correct.
It was the property. And, you know, we beat it to death, but, I mean, we had to be fair. We had to allow non-conforming at the same time, eliminate as much non-conforming as we possibly could. And you couldn't have it both ways. So we made carve-outs in the ordinance for 5
For a handful,
situations.
but not all situations, just a handful.
The ones we knew. I mean, you know,
Right,
I'm not
right,
clairvoyant. We did the best we could. And I would say if you take a look at the ordinance, you'll understand, you know, why we did it. But
Because you knew those people. That's what I did.
I didn't take that into account.
No, I'm not saying the individuals. I'm saying
Right.
you knew of those situations. And so you made
Correct.
exceptions.
And people were rightly concerned. They came here and voiced their opinion. I mean, we had a bunch of people in here a time or two on those meetings. So, but
Hey, I think, I shouldn't be getting in on this residential stuff, but I think you're creating a problem that doesn't exist. I think when you measure at the building setback line, if it's 100 feet, it covers all the situations. Okay? That cul-de-sac lot, measured at the building setbacks, make sure it's 100 feet.
yeah, but I mean,
That
what,
lot there on the right,
yeah.
if that thing were, let's say it's 100 feet wide, 10,000 feet deep.
Mm-hmm.
If you do an average measurement, it's less than 100. Yet it's a massive lot. You measure where the building setbacks are. But also, this idea that MBL, that's a minimum building line. It
Yeah.
doesn't say it's maximum.
Yeah.
So if the ordinance says it's 25 feet, you should still be able to go to 40 feet or 80 feet. You're just pushing the house further
Sure.
away from the road,
Yeah.
which is a good thing.
And I think that was
I
the
don't see that
intent.
you have any problems whatsoever with what you have now.
That was the intent of the ordinance that's in place today, that Wes has had to interpret. And to me, it makes no sense requiring somebody to, if we want to say that there has to be 100 feet from sideline to sideline on that lot, at some percentage of distance from the rear setback line. I mean, the intent was to push houses farther back, but really, I mean, my lot's 100 feet wide. I'm pushed way back, but I could bring that thing way forward if I wanted to. and have the steps come out right on the front setback line. I chose to push it back, but why penalize somebody for in a cul-de-sac and not let them bring a portion of that house into that? I mean, just as long as they are within the setback, what difference does it make if there's some building out there? They may want to do, a house that might look like a T or something. So they'd have a smaller width portion on the front of the setback, and then it wings out to a T. The notion of making you have 100 foot at the front setback line just seems out of whack to me.
Well, the other thought was another way to approach it is to kind of keep what we have, but get rid of the minimum and building setback line. And it would be a static line, 25 feet from the front property line.
I don't know. I just, if we're trying to keep 100 feet in the equation along with the 20,000 square feet of lot in order to make it a conforming lot, then I think you just as long as and the average, the mean was the middle of the lot in this case.
This cul-de-sac lot would be conforming if the building setback line is measured exactly at 25 feet. Well, in this case, no, it wouldn't. You said it was beyond that.
Yeah.
But if you came up with a number, maybe not 25, maybe further than 25, but it's not where it says the word minimum is taken out.
Why do you want to have a static line? I'm lost.
If you want to allow, if you don't want to have 100 feet measured from the front property line all the way to the back, and you also don't want to have the 100 feet at the average, it's just another option.
This definition here that comes from the American Legal Publishing definition, the second bullet, simplify lot width definition to be measured as the average or mean horizontal distance between the side property lines of a lot.
Where did that, if you don't mind me asking, which jurisdiction did that come from American Legal Publishing?
I just Googled lot width and it was about 3N. And then I said, dang on, I think this thing looks familiar, and Ducks.
Yeah, Kill Devil Hills has.
Kill Devil Hills uses American Publishing or Kitty Hawk. I can't remember which one. But there's a ton of municipalities in North Carolina that use the American Publishing, Legal Publishing. And they don't all use the definition, but I don't see why we have to hold tight on the 100 feet, where that's measured from. To me is
One of the things
a moving
is
target.
with the word minimum, and this goes back to that case that we had before. Minimum, the town interpreted as static, as 30. But when you do minimum, it could be 50, which would satisfy the 100, or it could be 60. But it's the interpretation of the word minimum that I found, that the town made, that I found was the problem. So you could have a minimum of 30 feet, but use the word minimum for what the word is. The minimum of 30 feet. You could have something 50 feet. You could have something 60 feet. So I think when you take the word minimum out, then you have a static line, and it's 25 feet, okay? But if you have if you say the word minimum at 25 feet, that means it starts at 25 It could be 50, it could be 60. It would satisfy the cul-de-sac aspect of it. And I think it's the interpretation of the word minimum that has caused a problem. That's my opinion, okay?
Well, and I disagree.
I know.
And I would have. I mean, I recused myself in that meeting, but I disagree. Lot width means the width of a lot at the required building setback line measured at right angles. Building setback line means a line parallel to or concentric with the street right-of-way, establishing the minimum allowable distance between such right-of-way and the nearest portion of any building, excluding the outermost 3 feet of porches, steps, gutters, and similar fixtures. So it established, the ordinance as it's written, still written today, established that minimum setback line as being 100 feet from across at the street or the front setback line.
We can
And it-
agree to disagree.
Yeah, but it needs to be way easier for Wes to interpret. And having that cul-de-sac lot be non-conforming with this ETA doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know how we,
Well, technically, it's non-conforming. Well,
it wouldn't be.
it
the
would be,
way-
it definitely would be with what's being proposed.
Yeah, so we're trying to move things out of nonconformity and have less nonconformity rather than more.
In the course of my investigations, Andy, we went through many, many examples of every cul-de-sac. Every cul-de-sac in this town has what, if you interpret the minimum the way it was interpreted, would have been non-conforming.
Yeah.
And I just don't believe the town was formed and platted out with the intent that these lots would be
No,
non-conforming.
I don't either.
That's why that minimum of 25 feet, as John said, you've got to have your house 25 feet from the street.
Mhm.
However, if you want to push it back further, you may. And if you have a cul-de-sac lot, you must, because you can't build on anything less than 100 feet. I think the minimum was put there for a good reason. And since all the business happened in 2017, 2018, to add exceptions to when the code was all rewritten, I think there was quite a bit of conversation, and there is the mindset that every lot's got to be 100 feet wide. It's got to be 100 feet wide. It's got to be 100 feet wide at the street. And that's how people have thought about it. But that's not accurate.
Mm-mm.
It does have to be 100 feet wide where you're going to build your house. I think the code as written is
Why-
correct.
Why should it be that?
Why should it be 100 feet wide?
Where you want to build your house, yeah.
That's
you-
what the town has said.
Well, that's what I'm disagreeing with. Why can't a setback is a setback is a setback? I mean, if I want to build right up to the setback line and max my lot coverage out, I'm entitled to do that. Why do I need to build at the 100-foot line? I mean, why do I need, in that cul-de-sac, if you can pull that back up again, Wes, I mean,
You think
And
that
I looked at-
that individual should be able to build less than the 100-foot line?
I think so. If you wanted to come in, I mean, like that 100 feet scales out roughly is to, where 100 feet would be from the,
Lot.
from sideline to sideline.
Uh-huh.
Why couldn't you, at 75 feet, if you wanted to go from setback line to setback line, why couldn't you build a smaller wing to your house and tee it out in the back where it gets wider? Why do you have to start your house at 100 foot sideline to sideline.
Well, that's just the way the code's written.
Well, that's what we're here for, is to,
So you're reducing, you're saying it has, okay, so you're saying that minimum lot width is anything?
100 feet. I mean, I believe that we need to have the 100-foot lot width in there somewhere, along with 20,000 square feet. That's important, I think.
Is that behind the 100 foot?
Hmm.
Just the lot is 20,000 square foot, or it's 20,000 square foot beyond the 100 on the back?
Well, the ordinance, the dimensional requirements say minimum lot size 20,000 square feet. And this is for a conforming lot. We know that you can take smaller lot that's legally non-conforming and build on it, but if you got two of them together, then you have to combine them. I mean, we know that, but
Unless you have an exception.
that's right.
But, so what you're saying is do an average, and if you have an average of 100-foot width on your lot, then you can build anywhere within the MBL, even if it's not 100 feet.
I think so. Now, I think you're allowed to use the sidelines. I mean,
That's interesting. Okay.
I think that in this case, it allows that lot to be conforming, and it gives more latitude for where the 100-foot sideline to sideline is taken.
Will that open the door for multiple ADUs being connected by a walkway on lots?
I think you should be able to use everything that's inside that red dotted line. You should be able to use within lot coverage.
True, but
30, I mean, we're not trying to relax lot coverage. I'm not advocating for that.
but you could build 3 ADUs of 800 feet, and within that little, inside
Not-
those red lines, right? If they're connected.
I don't know. That'd be a question for Wes. I don't think you'd be allowed to build 3 dwellings on there just yet.
No.
It would be one single family dwelling with or without a detached garage that could or could not be used for habitation.
Okay, but you can, I mean, we've seen now ADUs on properties, so you're saying that you could build a small house, and then they could put a wing on it and build something, smaller next to it. I mean, I'm just asking.
Yeah,
because
I
you're
don't know
saying
the answer to that.
We're now, saying you don't have to build on the 100 mark, you can start, closer, and I agree with that. But then, does that mean that person, and let's just say he has this adjoining lot that is, smaller, and he, wants to build these ADU. I mean, I'm trying to get, so we don't end up with what they've done in Kill Devil Hills, with the multiple, 6 houses on a lot. The question is, how do you, yeah, exactly.
Right now, we're covered on that as far as I can tell.
One dwelling unit per lot.
Yes, one dwelling unit per lot, and we allow a detached, I mean, like in the case that we were talking about earlier, a garage with an apartment above it, that's allowed. And technically, that is an accessory dwelling unit, right?
It is, but the definition, it doesn't rise to the level of being a dwelling unit based on the
Because
definition, because of the
it can't
stover
have-
oven and a,
It can't have both, and this is the interpretation, it can't have a sleeping quarters and a stove. If it has both, then it becomes an accessory dwelling unit. So, but
How does Beech Tree fall into that then? Because that's obviously not a garage at all.
well, it doesn't say it has to be garage. It says accessory structure. with
Yeah,
living
accessory.
space.
Okay.
See, incidental,
That's what I
incidental,
thought. Okay. They advertise kitchen.
Yeah.
The other thing, Jan, to your comment, House Bill 409 says that allow for development of detached single-family dwellings, plural, dwellings. Yeah,
And then, you know, the next thing.
I mean, as long as you can get the lot coverage, obviously.
The next thing the state's gonna do is say, wait a minute here now, 30% lot coverage in Southern Shores, that's, you know, that's way too much. You know, we gotta allow like 40% lot coverage.
I need to call the home builders.
Well, damn right, we all do. I mean, you know, it's just, people wanna keep this place quaint but yet everybody wants more. And you can't have it both ways. But I'm just trying to figure a way that makes situations like this non-conforming. I mean, there's no reason in the world why this lot would be labeled non-conforming.
Again, Andy, I think what's written in the current ordinance is good. All of this stuff came from the interpretation of what the 25-foot setback should be off the front. And again, that's a minimum. It doesn't say that is the setback, that's a minimum. And I'll also point out that the Martins Point residential subdivision has a 40-foot front yard setback. That was approved by the town of Southern Shores. Nobody said that to the developer, oh, we're not gonna let you push houses back.
Yeah.
40-foot was approved. The
40.
minimum was 25.
Yeah.
40-foot was approved because it exceeded the minimum.
But does your lot have to be 100 feet wide at that 40-foot setback?
Yes.
See, to me, that's ludicrous that we would have to, once again, if you don't meet the criteria of that, at the bottom of that red dotted arced line, that's non-conforming. It doesn't hit 100 till, you know, you go up that much more.
Otherwise, you get a 50-foot section at the front and it widens up. People could build on the 50-foot section. Yeah.
Well, what we're here for is ZTA, and it sounds like this is why don't we take a look at the ZTA, whether we're going to approve, disapprove, send it back? I mean, we've hashed it out. I think it could be a good time just to take a look at it and what we want to do with it.
Well, no offense, but I'm not comfortable with the definition of lot width and the definition of minimum lot width. I believe that it can be serviced better if it's
An average.
an average and would
That's
include,
not, yeah,
and that should not be a non-conforming lot.
no, I agree.
And by this language right here, and like Robert's examples
Yeah.
of cul-de-sac lots, that thing's non-conforming.
Well,
It shouldn't be.
that's why I think
I
we
don't
ought to
think
vote on
it's-
it.
Yes.
Say no.
Under
Send it
the
back.
new thing, it would be
We'll be-
non-conforming. My interpretation of,
Under the old thing, it would be non-conforming.
depending on how you interpret it, if you interpret minimum to mean it has to be 100 feet wide at 25 feet from the right of way,
Mhm.
you're incorrect. Every attorney told the mayor that we needed a consent order because it says minimum in the code. And the city and the town didn't want to pay our legal fees. Which, I mean, you can say that it should be interpreted as a static line, but that's not what is in the record at this point. And I don't think it behooves the town to do that again and ask property owners to jump through hoops to get that overruled.
Well,
That's why I think maybe we ought to vote on this, and if we don't approve it or we send it back, at least then, that might be fine. We'll see if something else comes up. I agree with you. That should be a conforming lot. There's no doubt about it.
and that's one lot out of
Yeah,
2,800
yeah,
lots.
absolutely. Which means this current ZTA would not fit that lot. And everybody says that the cul-de-sacs in this town are, and my street is a cul-de-sac. And there's a bunch of lots that would not fit it. So if we don't approve the ZTA, and then it goes where it goes. If we don't approve it, it goes back. Am I correct, Wes?
If you all recommend disapproval, it could still go to public hearing with council.
Okay,
If you recommend approval, it could go, or if y'all
yeah,
ask for more time, then we can consider giving more time, giving it more attention.
Well, I think we need to vote on whether we're going to approve or disapprove it. I think it needs some more attention. And I'll be glad to come in and, beat it around. I mean, it's kind of hard to, do this on the fly. So if I can come in and talk to Wes and maybe go over a few more criteria, and we come up with something that, we can feel like we're close, and run it by the attorney and see if he's okay with it. But yeah, I'm not ready to do this. So, I would entertain a motion to, do more work on this.
yeah. I'll make a motion for ZTA 2303 that not to approve it as written and send it back for more work,
I'll second
I just
Tony's
think-
motion. So, any
Make a
discussion
suggestion that
before
it's
we
not-
vote? Pardon?
Yeah,
Change the motion so that we're not disapproving, we're not recommending approval, because we don't actually do that.
okay, you're right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll amend my, and say, we recommend
Disapproval.
to send it back, ZTA 2303.
We don't recommend it for,
We don't
recommend it to go.
yeah, we don't recommend it to go to town council at this time
Right, without more work.
without more work.
We
Okay,
can't
Matt?
take action on it.
Well, just FYI, procedurally, it could go to council, but
Right.
I doubt we'll do that since this is
Okay.
what y'all recommending, and, we get it.
Okay.
Then I'll second that amended motion. Any discussion?
If I could just ask let me just ask a question and poll the board.
Yeah.
So do you all think that what's in the language now should remain?
No.
I don't.
I do.
Can you?
Oh, what's currently in it?
Yes.
Yes, with some work on, yeah, I would recommend that it remain.
So that's three of you.
What now?
What do you think, your opinion, do you think that the ordinance, the lot width language right now in the ordinance should stay as it is?
I said no.
Oh, versus changing it to average of 100? I mean, what is the other option?
Average.
The,
As
Well-
opposed to changing it to anything? Do you think right now it should stay as it is?
you don't get a vote.
John,
Well,
yeah, so
that's
John,
the
three of
definition.
you.
I don't get to vote on the residential aspects, but the definition does apply to commercial, doesn't it?
It does.
So I'll vote, I like the current definition. My compliments to the planning board in the past for coming up with this current definition. I think y'all did a great job.
The-
The current.
What's in place right now?
Yeah.
Not is
Yeah.
what is proposed.
Okay. Well, thank y'all. Y'all answered my question.
Okay. Well, I'm amazed, but we've got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Take a vote on the motion. I vote on Tony's motion, my second. Okay, so we are clear that we don't approve.
Not
this
recommending
moving forward.
approval. Don't recommend approval.
Not recommending approval.
Recommending approval.
Okay. All right, that was easy enough.
I'll go to the dentist next.
Yeah. Well, we want to get it right and we want to be fair. And I'm not saying I want to relax things, but I certainly think that relaxes a situation. Anyway, let's move on. We don't have public comment here anymore. Go down the line for planning board member comments. Robert, you got anything?
Do y'all, no, I don't have anything right now. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I know.
all right. Wes, announcements.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next meeting is May 15th. Regular meeting is May 15th at 5 o'clock. We have on the agenda, if you all recall, the ZTA that was submitted by Casey Varnell on behalf of Patricia Pledger to establish a living facility in the ETJ area that has been requested to go back on the agenda. We also will have a zoning text amendment application submitted by Matt Huban, who resides in Southern Shores Landing, that addresses planned unit developments and buffers between commercial zoning district. We may or may not, I'm not sure yet, have an ordinance in front of you all to relinquish ETJ. Which is, it's odd that it's going to be, it could possibly be on the same agenda as Ms. Pledger's request. But also at the same time, we're rethinking the relinquishment because the legislature, I don't know if everyone's aware, introduced a bill to remove the authority from municipalities to have ETJ authority.
I didn't hear the end of it, what you said.
It's a bill that would remove the authority from municipalities to have ETJ authority.
They
So
introduced
as
something
what
like
Robert
that-
said is very true. So,
They introduced something like that 7 or 8 years ago and it went nowhere.
right.
But wouldn't that, if we didn't have the authority, it would automatically push you to the county, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's what
But
you're
I just
looking
assume
for
not-
anyway, right?
I just soon not wait.
Yeah.
I kind
I
of was
don't-
hoping this would all get done before Ms. Pledger put in something new, but we'll deal with whatever.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're going to wait. I mean, I wanted y'all to be aware of that bill, and I can send everything tomorrow. I don't have the number with me. I didn't write that down. But that may be on the agenda, the relinquishment. Commercial design standards, we're still working on that. Last announcement is that there will be a workshop next Wednesday, the 26th. Land use plan update consultant Stuart are going to be here. The draft land use plan has been prepared. We've given them one round of comments. They're supposedly, or if everything is on schedule, they will make revisions to the draft plan and it will be posted on the website for public review this coming Wednesday, the 19th. And then on the 26th, the public workshop being held here at 5 o'clock is to get public input on the plan. So if any of y'all feel free to stop by, drop in. It's from 5 to 7.
April 26th.
Yes, sir. And so what we'll do, the next step after that is, we'll obtain public input on the draft plan. Further revisions will be made, then eventually it'll be brought to you all for a recommendation. And y'all can provide additional comments on it at that time as well.
Let's going back to the Southern Shores Landing. That's the fellow that is head of the association back there.
He's not the head of the association. He's kind of been a liaison.
point
between the
person.
property owners association and the town. There was the zoning map amendment. Y'all know we had that. That was withdrawn. And then now at this point, there's a zoning text amendment that Mr. Huban is going to be, or he already has submitted on his own. It's not affiliated or associated with the Southern Shores Landing Homeowners Association. This is from him individually.
Is he working through town staff to put the CTA together, or is he?
So the town staff had a ZTA prepared that addressed what he's requesting. And actually, that ZTA was withdrawn as well. Y'all were going to review it. Y'all never got to review it. It was going to be at that special meeting.
Yeah.
That was withdrawn. Mr. Huban submitted a public information request to obtain the ZTA, and he has submitted that ZTA verbatim.
I got you.
That was prepared by staff.
Interesting. But, I mean, the town council certainly is wanting to create that buffer one way or the other, right?
I can't speak for council.
Seemed like that was the mood last I remember, but as it stands right now, there's no buffer there.
They directed staff to continue looking into plan unit developments and setback requirements.
Right.
And at this point, Mr. Huban has already requested this ZTA language that was drafted back in March to move forward with that.
They did have multiple people at the council meeting make public comments.
There were some folks that spoke from the community. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All asking for that ZTA to be approved.
Well, I certainly think we should do everything we can to help that situation as a town, whether it's from this board or from town council.
I did have one comment that I forgot about. I looked back through the minutes more closely, and I didn't see anything, and maybe it was after our meeting was closed, perhaps. We had a conversation with the consultant, and I think Ed mentioned the canals being shown more clearly on the map, and that canals have some level of priority in the new master plan or the new plan. Yes, sir.
Okay, well, anybody got anything else?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second, anyone? Jan seconds. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks.